Donald Trump is having a no good, very, very bad week. He is seemingly unnerved since Harris has entered the race, even though it's been almost 3 weeks now. Trump insiders telling the New York Times he's been, quote, flailing, blindsided, angry, and in a foul mood. And that was just Thursday. Trump allies reportedly pleading with him to focus on his campaign messaging and policy issues and to stop the personal attacks on Harris. But he's not taking that advice. Instead, he's doubling down. Take a look and a listen.
I think I'm entitled to personal attacks. I don't have a lot of respect for her. I don't have a lot of respect for her intelligence. And I think she'll be a terrible president. I just want to win for the country. Some people say, oh, why don't you be nice? But they're not nice to me. They want to put me in prison.
It could have stopped at, I think I'm entitled. That pretty much explains his whole campaign. But it does get worse. Last night at a campaign event intended to discuss anti-Semitism, Trump insulted American veterans, calling the Civilian Presidential Medal of Freedom, quote, much better than the top military honor. Watch this.
That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets or they're dead.
Some veterans swiftly blasting Trump online for the, quote, disrespectful remarks. And Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, is a walking disaster and, of course, is making matters worse. His controversial comments on women and reproductive rights are driving women away in droves. A new poll from Pennsylvania, a critical battleground state, shows women backing Harris at 54% over Trump and Vance at 41%. That's a 13-point difference. And new polling shows J.D. Vance is now the most unpopular vice presidential pick in modern history, with a lower favorability rating than Sarah Palin. Joining me now to discuss is April Ryan, White House correspondent and D.C. bureau chief for The Griot. Her book is Black Women Will Save the World, and Juanita Tolliver is back with us. April, I'll start with you. You've covered the White House for years. When I'm reading a story that says that J.D. Vance is the most unpopular VP pick in recent history, I am old enough to remember a guy who couldn't spell potato. I am old enough to remember Dick Cheney, who people were comparing to Darth Vader, okay? I remember Sarah Palin, who skyrocketed into popularity until she started speaking, and then basically SNL ended her career politically. What does it mean that J.D. Vance, in only 3 weeks, is already the least popular VP pick in American history?
Because we've read this book, Jason. We've read this book cover to cover, and people are tired of it. It didn't even get a rating on the bestsellers list, okay? The bottom line is the book that we've read, The Antics of Donald Trump Before, and J.D. Vance is nothing but a younger, steroided version with more of a mouth than Donald Trump. And when you attack women, their private parts, there's some kind of fascination with women and their private parts. It's a problem, especially as women are the largest electorate in this country, whether it's Republican or Democrat. And then think about this. Sarah Palin really started all of this, us versus them in this modern era, particularly when it came to Barack Obama. And remember that moment when John McCain stepped in, the late, great Senator John McCain stepped in and said, look, there was a woman at a rally saying, I hear he's an Arab. He said, no, we're just candidates going against each other. He's a good man. Sarah Palin started that. And for J.D. Vance to poll under her, that's saying a lot. And Donald Trump, I'm sure, is devastated by that as well as the numbers against Kamala Harris right now.
And also I want to add, it is impossible to ever mention J.D. Vance without also mentioning the only reason he's in that position is because Donald Trump basically sat back as people tried to kill his last vice presidential candidate. Very important context to always remember. Juanita, there's been this sort of call within the Republican Party that they need to shift. And look, I'm one of those people. I don't care how many times you shake an Etch-a-Sketch, you can tell what's there, right? Donald Trump has never been able to reset. He's never been able to flip. But I want to play this sound of some of the Republicans calling for that. Get your thoughts on the other side.
I want this campaign to win. But the campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes.
I think he and the Republican Party would be well served to focus on the policy contrasts.
It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is.
It's going to be a race, and you've got to make this race not on personalities. Stop questioning the size of her crowds.
He's lost control. He's committing political suicide.
It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb. It's not, you can't win on those things.
So stupid. Just focus on the damn borders.
Now, Juanita, this would be reasonable advice to probably any other Republican candidate running, but it appears as though the polling is now showing that Americans trust Kamala Harris more when it comes to the economy. Americans trust Kamala Harris more when it comes to protecting national security. They trust Kamala Harris more when it comes to abortion rights. There really only appears to be one area where Republicans are trusted more than the Democratic ticket, and that's at the border. And she's still got time to talk about that, right?
Plenty of time to talk about it. I know she came out with a new ad last week talking about it proactively before Donald Trump could try to pigeonhole her any further on the issue. But the reality is Trump is just going to look at those people you just played in the montage and say, they're all losers. I don't care what they say. I'm going to do what I want to do. So, yes, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, please keep pissing off women. Keep pissing off veterans. Piss off every demographic group you can, because your campaign is only going to continue to sink further and further. And I say that with an asterisk, Jason, because, you know, we don't trust polls, because they're merely a snapshot. And so as these people are stepping away from Trump or choosing as Republican voters to stay at home, or Democratic voters getting riled up, sign up for some volunteer shifts if you're pissed off. Make a call to a friend if you're pissed off, because that's where the action comes to a head in November. So bottle up this energy, because it's not going to stop. You know, honestly, Jason, as I look forward to September 10th, I'm wondering how Donald Trump is going to disrespect Vice President Kamala Harris to her face. Because remember the reaction he had when then Senator Kamala Harris questioned Brett Kavanaugh during the Senate confirmation hearing. Donald Trump couldn't help himself, went to the press. She's an extraordinarily nasty woman, right? Kept saying that every single day, disrespecting the vice president, calling her out of her name. He's going to slip up. He's going to do that because he is going to be outraged by the fact that a Black and South Asian woman is looking him in his face and calling him out with strength and clarity and a message that resonates with voters. And he's going to explode. And that's something we should all be prepared for.
And it's particularly telling when you see these comments from Nikki Haley. She called this. She said, look, we have to dump these older candidates. She's probably thinking to herself, like Lizzo, paraphrasing, you could have had me. I could have been your VP. I would be fighting these arguments better than J.D. Vance is. April, I want to play you some quick sound from J.D. Vance talking about immigration and ethnic enclaves, and get your thoughts on the other side as to how he's totally not connecting with how most Americans see immigration today.
Right.
Has anybody ever seen the movie Gangs of New York? That's what I'm talking about. We know that when you have these massive ethnic enclaves forming in our country, it can sometimes lead to higher crime rates. What we want is an American immigration policy that promotes assimilation.
What?
April, in short, how is his inability to understand immigration the way that most Americans see it? And look, I understand there's plenty of people concerned about the border, but comparing it to a movie as opposed to the way that most people are living immigration today, both struggles, positive and negative, how does that show how disconnected he is from where most Americans are?
And you're absolutely right. The word disconnected. First of all, crime nationally is down. Okay. Second of all, the immigration system is broken. However, the issue is when these immigrants come in looking for solace, many of them are looking for a better life. They're not the criminals that they're trying to paint them as. And the problem is they want to shut the border down. And this is what America needs to understand. The Trump Vance ticket wants to shut the border down because there is a fear of the browning of America. And that's the whole crux of it. And Jason, when you go to it, they're talking about the border, but they still don't talk about the overstays of the visas that Homeland Security has said is 3 times greater than it has been. So, and the overstays of the visas are typically Europeans, people, white people who are coming into the country. They're not talking about that, but they continue to talk about this border that has Ukrainians, that has Haitians, that has Africans and Mexicans, South Americans, people from everywhere. So don't get it twisted. He can use any kind of movie name, including that movie, the Hillbilly movie that he was in, if he wants. But the bottom line, it's about the browning of America. It's not necessarily about securing the border. It's about preventing the numbers from going up.